My boss's wife invited me to dinner at their home, and halfway through the meal, she looked me directly in the eyes and asked, "Do you love her?" Which is when I realized she knew about the feelings I had been desperately trying to hide for the past 6 months. Before I tell you how I answered that question and what happened when the truth finally came out, tell me in the comments which city you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe to the channel to help support more stories like this. My name is Jordan, and I had been working as senior marketing manager at a tech startup in San Francisco for exactly 6 months when I received the invitation that would change everything. My boss, Natalie Chen, was the chief operating officer and one of the most brilliant people I had ever worked with. She was 34, driven, creative, and had a way of inspiring her team that made everyone want to work harder just to earn her approval. She was also married, which made the crush I had developed on her both inappropriate and completely hopeless. I had met her wife, Simone, briefly at company events. She was a successful architect, beautiful and sophisticated, exactly the kind of person you would expect someone like Natalie to be with. They seemed perfect together, and I hated myself a little bit for the jealousy I felt every time Natalie mentioned her. I had been doing an excellent job of keeping my feelings professional and hidden, or so I thought. I worked hard, delivered results, and maintained appropriate boundaries even when Natalie would stay late at the office and we would end up talking for hours about projects, ideas, and occasionally more personal topics. Those late-night conversations were both the best and worst parts of my job because they made me feel close to her in ways that only made my feelings stronger. Then one Thursday afternoon, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Jordan. This is Simone Chen, Natalie's wife. I was hoping you might be free for dinner at our home this Saturday evening. Just the three of us, nothing formal. Natalie speaks so highly of you, and I would love to get to know you better. Let me know if you can make it." I stared at the message for a full minute, trying to figure out if this was normal. Did bosses' spouses regularly invite their employees to dinner? Was this a networking thing? A social courtesy? Or was this something else? Something that made my stomach twist with anxiety? I considered declining, making up an excuse, but that would seem strange and potentially rude. So I texted back accepting the invitation, and spent the next 2 days alternating between excitement at the prospect of seeing Natalie in her home environment and terror that somehow Simone had figured out my feelings, and this dinner was some kind of confrontation. Saturday arrived too quickly, and I found myself standing outside their beautiful Victorian home in Pacific Heights, clutching a bottle of wine and trying to calm my racing heart. Simone answered the door, and up close she was even more striking than I remembered. She had warm brown skin, natural curls pulled back in a casual style, and dark eyes that seemed to assess me carefully, even as she smiled warmly. "Jordan, thank you so much for coming. Please, come in." The house was stunning, all exposed brick and modern design mixed with vintage elements, clearly the work of a talented architect. Natalie appeared from the kitchen wearing jeans and a casual sweater, looking more relaxed than I had ever seen her at work. "Jordan, you made it. I hope Simone did not intimidate you with this invitation." "Not at all," I lied, handing over the wine. "Thank you for having me." "We have been meaning to do this for a while," Natalie said, though I had never heard her mention any such plan. "I work with you more than I see my own wife these days, so Simone insisted on meeting the person who keeps me at the office so late." There was something in the way she said it, something in the look that passed between her and Simone, that made me think this dinner was more calculated than casual. We moved to the dining room where Simone had prepared an impressive meal. The conversation started out safe. Work projects, industry trends, my background, and how I ended up in San Francisco. Simone was an excellent host, asking thoughtful questions and seeming genuinely interested in my answers. But as the evening progressed, I began to notice the dynamic between Natalie and Simone more carefully. They were affectionate in an easy, comfortable way that spoke of years together. But there was also something else, a kind of distance or tension I could not quite identify. Simone would make comments that seemed innocent but carried an edge, and Natalie would respond with careful neutrality. After dinner, Natalie excused herself to take a work call that apparently could not wait, leaving me alone with Simone. She poured us both more wine and settled back in her chair, studying me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "So, Jordan," she said casually, "how are you really enjoying working with Natalie?" "She is an incredible boss," I said honestly. I have learned more in 6 months working with her than I did in years at my previous job. She has that effect on people, Simone said. She is very good at inspiring loyalty and dedication, sometimes too good. I did not know how to respond to that, so I just nodded and took a sip of wine. Can I ask you something? Simone continued, her tone still casual but her eyes sharp. And I want you to be honest with me, even if the truth is uncomfortable. My heart started racing. Okay, do you love her? The question hit me like a physical blow. I must have looked as shocked as I felt because Simone's expression softened slightly. I am not trying to attack you, she said gently. I am genuinely asking. Do you love my wife? I could have lied. I should have lied. But something about the way she was looking at me, with what seemed like understanding rather than accusation, made me tell the truth. I have feelings for her that are inappropriate, I said quietly, but I would never act on them. I respect your marriage and I respect her. I have been trying very hard to keep everything professional. Simone nodded slowly, like I had confirmed something she already knew. I believe you. About not acting on it, I mean. Natalie has mentioned how professional you are, how you never cross boundaries even when you are working late together. She appreciates that about you. She knows? I asked, horrified. She suspects, Simone corrected. As do I. It is not that hard to see, Jordan. The way you look at her when you think no one is watching. The way you remember every little thing she mentions. The way you light up when she walks into a room. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. I am so sorry. I never meant to make anyone uncomfortable. If you want me to request a transfer or resign, I completely understand. I do not want you to do either of those things, Simone said, surprising me. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something, which is why I invited you here tonight. Before she could continue, Natalie returned from her call. She looked between us, clearly sensing the tension in the room. Everything okay in here? Everything is fine, Simone said smoothly. Jordan and I were just having an honest conversation. Why don't you sit down? This involves you too. Natalie sat, looking confused and slightly worried. Simone took a deep breath and said, I am going to say something that might sound strange, but I need both of you to hear me out before reacting. Can you do that? We both nodded, though I felt like I might be sick. Natalie and I have been together for 8 years, Simone began. Married for 5. And for the most part, they have been wonderful years. We love each other, we respect each other, and we have built a good life together. She paused, and Natalie reached over to take her hand, looking concerned. But over the past year or so, Simone continued, we have both been feeling that something is missing. Not wrong, exactly, but incomplete. We have been in therapy, trying to figure out what that is. Simone, Natalie said softly, clearly not sure where this was going. Let me finish, Simone said gently. What we have realized, with our therapist's help, is that we are both capable of loving more than one person. That our relationship, as strong as it is, might benefit from being more open to connection with others. I felt like the room was tilting. Are you saying you are opening your marriage? We have been discussing it, Simone confirmed, with very specific guidelines and a lot of communication. And then Natalie started talking about you. About how smart you are, how creative, how easy you are to work with. And I noticed how she would light up when she talked about you in a way she had not lit up about much lately. So I asked her directly, Simone continued, looking at Natalie now. I asked if she had feelings for you, and she was honest with me. She told me that yes, she had developed feelings, but that she would never act on them because she is committed to our marriage. Natalie looked mortified. Simone, we discussed not bringing this up like this. I know, Simone said. But I have been watching you both tonight, and I have been watching Natalie for months, and I think we are all dancing around something that deserves to be addressed directly. She turned back to me. Jordan, I asked you if you love her. You said you have inappropriate feelings. I am telling you that those feelings do not have to be inappropriate. Not if everyone is honest and everyone consents. I do not understand, I said, though part of me was beginning to. I am saying that if you and Natalie want to explore a relationship, I am not standing in the way, Simone said clearly. In fact, I think it might be exactly what we all need. What Natalie needs, what I need by extension, because I love her and I want her to be fully happy. I looked at Natalie, who looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. Is this real? I asked. Is this actually what you want? I do not know, Natalie said honestly. Simone and I have been talking about this in theory for months, but hearing it said out loud with you here, it feels surreal. Do you have feelings for me? I asked directly, needing to hear it from her. She met my eyes and I saw vulnerability there I had never seen before. Yes, I have tried not to, but yes. You make me excited about work in a way I have not felt in years. You challenge me and inspire me and make me want to be better. And somewhere along the way, that professional admiration became something more. But I love Simone, she continued quickly. That has not changed and will not change. She is my partner, my home. This is not about replacing her or our marriage being broken. It is about expansion, not replacement, Simone added. About acknowledging that humans are complex and capable of multiple loves. Our therapist calls it ethical non-monogamy. We call it trying to be honest about what we feel and what we need. I sat there processing this impossible conversation. This is a lot, I finally said. It is, Simone agreed, which is why we are not asking you to decide anything tonight. We are just putting it out there. If the idea is completely unappealing, if this crosses too many lines for you, then we forget this conversation happened and you and Natalie maintain your professional relationship as it is. But if you are open to exploring it, Natalie said quietly, then we would want to do this right. Clear boundaries, open communication, respect for everyone involved. I need time, I said, to think about this, to figure out if I can actually do this. Take all the time you need, Simone said. But Jordan? For what it is worth, I would not have suggested this if I did not think you were someone special. Someone who could add to our lives rather than complicate them. I left their house that night feeling like I had stepped into an alternate reality. The woman I had been secretly in love with for months had just admitted she had feelings for me too, with her wife's blessing, and I had no idea what to do with that information. I spent the entire next week in a daze, barely able to focus on work. Natalie was carefully professional with me, giving me space, not pushing for an answer. I did research on ethical non-monogamy, read articles and forums, tried to understand if this was something I could actually participate in. The idea of being with Natalie was everything I had wanted, but the reality of sharing her with someone else, of being the addition rather than the primary partner, was complicated in ways I had not anticipated. Finally, after 10 days of internal debate, I asked Natalie if we could talk privately. We met at a coffee shop after work, neutral territory. I have been thinking about what you and Simone proposed, I said. And? She asked, looking nervous. And I have questions. A lot of them. We talked for 3 hours. She explained how she and Simone had come to this decision, the therapy they had done, the books they had read, the conversations they had had about boundaries and expectations. She was honest about her fears, about not knowing if this would work, about caring for me enough to take the risk but loving Simone enough to not proceed without her full consent and enthusiasm. What does this look like practically? I asked. Do we date? Do I come over for dinners? How does this work in terms of work and our professional relationship? We figure it out as we go, she said, with constant communication. Simone has suggested maybe starting with just spending time together, the three of us, getting comfortable with the dynamic before anything becomes romantic. She wants to be involved? I asked. She wants to know you, Natalie said. If you are going to be a significant person in my life, she wants you to be a person in her life too. Not in a romantic way necessarily, but as someone she trusts and respects. This is so unconventional, I said. It is, Natalie agreed. But conventional has not been working for us lately. And you, Jordan, you make me feel alive again. You make me excited about possibilities. I do not want to lose that. I need to think about it more, I said. But I am not saying no. Her face lit up with hope. Really? Really? I just need to be sure I can do this in a way that is healthy for everyone, including me. That is all I can ask, she said softly. 2 weeks later, I had dinner at their house again. This time felt different, less tense. Simone and I talked more easily, and I began to see her not as an obstacle but as a person in her own right, someone interesting and warm. She told me about her architecture projects, about her own journey of understanding her capacity for non-monogamy, about her genuine desire for Natalie to have more joy in her life. I want to try this, I told them both at the end of the evening. But I need clear boundaries. I need to know what is okay and what is not. And I need to know that if at any point this is not working for any of us, we can end it without destroying everything. Agreed, they both said. So we started, cautiously and carefully. At first, it was mostly the three of us spending time together on weekends. Dinners, movies, walks around the city. Getting to know each other as people rather than boss and employee, or wife and potential partner. Gradually, Natalie and I began spending time alone too. Coffee dates before work, lunches that stretched a little too long, conversations that went deeper than professional. The first time she kissed me, we were in her car after one of those long lunches. "Is this okay?" she asked, her hand on my face. "Yes," I breathed, and when our lips met, it felt like something clicking into place. When I got home that night, she had already texted Simone to tell her what happened. Simone texted me too. "I am happy for you both. Take care of each other." Over the next few months, we built something that defied easy description. Natalie and I were partners in some ways, dating in others, but always with Simone as a part of the equation. The three of us had dinner together at least twice a week. Natalie and Simone maintained their primary relationship, their home life, their marriage. But Natalie and I had our own connection too, one that felt precious and intentional. It was not always easy. There were moments of jealousy on all sides, moments where boundaries needed to be renegotiated, moments where someone felt left out or overwhelmed. But we talked about all of it, constantly and honestly. We went to therapy together, all three of us sometimes, to make sure we were maintaining healthy communication. At work, Natalie and I were scrupulously professional. We had disclosed our relationship to HR and to her boss, wanting everything above board. Some people had opinions about it, but most just cared that we were both still excellent at our jobs. And we were. Maybe even better than before because we were both happier, more fulfilled. 6 months into this arrangement, I was at their house for Sunday brunch when Simone said, "I think we need to talk about something." My heart sank, fearing this was the end. But she was smiling as she continued, "I think this is working. Really working. And I want to make sure Jordan knows that she is not just Natalie's girlfriend. She is part of our family now. If that is something you want, Jordan." I looked between them, these two incredible women who had taken such a risk on me. "I want that," I said, tears in my eyes. "I want to be part of this family." Natalie reached over and took my hand, and Simone put her hand over both of ours. "Then welcome home," Simone said. That was 18 months ago. Now I spend most weekends at their house. I have a drawer in their guest room that Simone jokingly calls my room. I have holidays with them and their families, who have accepted this arrangement with varying degrees of understanding. I have a relationship with Natalie that fills me with joy, and a friendship with Simone that I treasure. It is not conventional, and it is not for everyone. There are still moments of difficulty, still adjustments and negotiations, but it works for us because we chose it consciously, because we communicate constantly, because we all genuinely care about each other's well-being. Sometimes I think about that first dinner, when Simone asked me if I loved her wife. I think about how terrified I was, how certain I was that my feelings meant the end of my job or worse. And then I think about how that moment of honesty, as terrifying as it was, opened the door to something I never could have imagined. Simone did not ask me that question to catch me or punish me. She asked because she already knew the answer, and she wanted to give us all permission to explore what it meant. She asked because she loved Natalie enough to want her to have more joy, even if that joy came from someone else. She asked because she is one of the bravest people I have ever met. And when I answered honestly, When I admitted to loving Natalie despite knowing it was complicated, I opened myself up to a life that is richer and more complex than anything I had planned. I did not just get the woman I loved. I got a family, a home, a relationship that challenges me to be more honest and more open than I ever thought possible. So yes, my boss's wife invited me to dinner and asked if I loved her. I said yes, expecting consequences and confrontation. Instead, I got acceptance and invitation, an offer to build something new together. And in accepting that offer and being brave enough to step into the unknown, I found a love that is bigger than I knew love could be. Not because it is conventional or easy, but because it is honest and intentional and built on a foundation of genuine care for everyone involved. Sometimes the question that seems most dangerous is actually the one that sets you free. Sometimes admitting you love someone who belongs to someone else is not the end of the story, but the beginning. And sometimes the wife is not your enemy, but your ally, someone who understands love well enough to know it does not have to be limited or possessive to be real. That is what Simone taught me, and that is what I will always be grateful for.